Well, I want to do an update on the splits that I made this year. I think the last video I had just split this hive, and I had a single box over here, and they made some queen cells, and I was hopeful they were gonna requeen themselves, but I guess they must have built them off of drone eggs because they ended up tearing them down and they went queenless. So I went back into this hive about a week after I made that first split, and I recognized that they were not viable queen cells that they had created. So I guess it was actually 2 weeks. I would go back in here and the big hive was just jam-packed full of queen cells. So I was in kind of a pickle, so I cut all the queen cells out just to buy some time. I didn't really think that was going to keep them from swarming, but I figured at least it gives me time to figure out what to do. So what I ended up doing a week after that is I went back in here and found the queen, and I took her and some frames of brood and honey and bee bread, put them in another box, and it ended up on a little stand over here next to this one, which had one story still. And I took a frame with a couple queen cells and put it in the queenless split so they could have another chance at making a queen. And then I went through this hive and cut out all but 3 queen cells. And then I left them alone for a good week. Came back and checked this one, and the queen cells had hatched, but from the side. So it looked like they tore them out, and I wasn't sure what happened. So I waited 2 more weeks. There were no eggs, no queen. And the queen from the original hive was still in a box next to this one. So I ended up combining them with newspaper, putting the queen right split on the bottom and putting the one that was on this stand on top of that with newspaper in between, and combined them. So the queenless split ended up with the queen from this hive. I went back into this hive and found eggs, so I knew they requeened themselves, and then a week later I found the queen, and I have a video I'll post of where I marked her, and she's awesome. I can't believe how gentle they are. It's ironic because this queen is from Big Island queens from Oliveras, and they're great bees, they're great foragers. They build up really fast. I mean, you can see I've already got 3 boxes on this. It's been 2 months. That's crazy, and I haven't fed them except for when the splits were small and they didn't have workers like I did on this one, which I'll get to in a minute. But this is all just from, you know, the flow that's going on, which we're having a really good flow this year because of we've been having rain, and I'm in Southern California. It's May. Usually it's mid 70s this time of year. It's been high 60s, low 70s, and we've had rain the last few days on and off. And I mean, we may have had one day where it got above 80, but it's usually much warmer this time of year and not much rain. And it's like a extended spring for us, so the flow this year is just crazy. Everything keeps blooming. It keeps blooming. So I already pulled a super off of this one and extracted, and we got like 37.5 pounds of honey. It's crazy, just off one super. So this queen here, her girls are a little more defensive. In this hive, I've been stung several times working her bees, and you know, when she was in this hive, and I got stung the other day when I just opened up the top, and I didn't wear a suit and I didn't use any smoke, so I mean, that's on me. And they're not, I mean, I'm right next to the hive, they're not attacking me, so they're not like aggressive, but they're a little defensive. But this queen, her daughter, who was locally bred, and I'm in the Long Beach area of Southern California, you know, I was nervous because you hear all these horror stories about Africanized genetics and mean bees and people getting stung, and I mean, that's something I take really seriously. So I figured she would probably end up being too defensive, and her girls would be too defensive, and I'd end up requeening them, which is the original intent of the queen that ended up in the small split there. Was a backup queen for this hive. Now, this split was made from this hive about 2.5 weeks ago, right before this queen came in. She's in the small split. She's from Wildflower Meadows, who's a local queen breeder who breeds survivor queens that are supposed to be treatment free. So we'll see how true that is. I've read lots of conflicting data on, well, anecdotal evidence, people's experiences with treatment-free bees. So we'll see what happens if that's true or not. I'm going to not do mite treatments on this hive, and I will do treatments on these, and I'm going to see what happens. But supposedly, the Wildflower Meadows queen is supposed to be treatment-free, and they're supposed to be gentle and bred from Italian stock. So I expected to have to requeen the big hive after their locally bred queen got going, because I expected this hive to get more defensive, and I was nervous because they were already kind of defensive. But I can almost inspect that big old hive without smoke. They're that calm. I mean, it's a big hive. I'm not going to do that because it's just risky, but I have opened it up several times to just kind of check out the supers. I haven't had a bee fly up in my face. This hive, if I open the top, it's risky. It's risky with this one without any smoke or anything. So this queen is just beautiful, healthy, really light colored, kind of honey colored, and just laying like a boss. She's doing great. The Wildflower Meadows queen, it's too early to say anything yet. It's a small split. She's laying. I know that. They've got several frames of cap brood in there that are hatching, so their numbers are coming up, and I won't really know anything of value for another couple months as far as her ability to brood up and how their bees act and everything, because it's small hives like that are not often very defensive or difficult. So usually that hive's pretty easy to work because it's tiny. So jury's still out on Wildflower Meadows, but all in all, this year has been really great so far, and for my second year beekeeping, I'm real encouraged by just the buildup that I've had and being able to make some splits and have them work. And you can see I don't move my splits real far from each other. I don't expect them to keep a workforce. I just let the drift go back to the original hive. I throw a feeder on the hive, put a little bit of pollen in there for them so they got something to get by on for a couple weeks. And if their numbers are a little low, I'll try to grab some nurse bees from another hive, make sure the queen's not on there, and shake a few extra nurse bees in there so they got plenty of bees in there to keep their brood warm, and just let them build up that way. And it worked pretty good. I mean, both the other splits I made that became this one, I did that with, and you can see this hive is just going gangbusters. And part of that is the queen, obviously, like, she's prolific, and these bees are excellent foragers, so that makes a big difference. But I haven't gone with the method of taking your splits and moving them across the bee yard or whatever, or reorienting them. I just kind of accept the drift and work with it. And so far that's worked. And, being a second year beekeeper, like, what do I know? Like, this is just my experiments, and so far it's worked pretty good. So, if this is helpful to you, I'm sure if you're a longtime beekeeper, this is not news. A lot of this stuff is pretty much stuff you've probably known for a long time and know more than I do about. So if I'm off on anything, please do let me know in the comments. If this is helpful to you, please do like and subscribe, and I'll put out some more videos as it makes sense, and I'll post a video of when I marked that queen so you can get a look at her. Okay, have a good one. God bless.